Hey, thank you for watching my video. Today we are going to remove the front wheel of a Honda Africa Twin and we're going to replace the tires and put the wheels back on. This is going to be the front wheel, obviously. The first thing we're going to do is loosen the 22 millimeter nut that holds the axle in place, and then we're going to loosen the 12 millimeter pinch bolts. So you want to loosen both sides, left and right. Pretty straightforward. This is going to allow your axle to slide out of the bike a lot easier once you loosen these. So next we're going to take a 14 millimeter and we're going to remove the brake caliper bolts, and we're going to drop that brake caliper out of the way. On this bike, if I'm not mistaken, you could get away with just removing one of the brake calipers, but it's always best to remove both brake calipers and inspect your brake pads while you're at it. Also, your Honda manual says that these brake caliper bolts are a one-time use item. Um, I don't see why. Uh, this is the first time the wheel's been off of this bike. Um, the bolts look just fine. Um, they were torqued down properly. Whoever put those bolts in torqued them properly. I used a torque wrench and used the Honda specs to torque them. Yeah, I didn't see where the bolts were stretched or out of place or anything, but I have seen on forums where I guess guys have broke the bolt off or lost the bolts if they do a lot of off-road riding. You decide. It's your bike. This particular bike only has about 4,000 miles on it, and the brake caliper bolts look just fine to me. Um, I removed them, set them aside. I did not replace them. They are cheap enough if you decide that you want to replace yours. So now we're over on the left side of the bike, removing the caliper bolts from the left side caliper. And a little trick that I use when I'm removing a caliper is, as I slide that caliper off, I give it a little bit of a twist when it comes off of the rotor. That way it separates the pads just a tiny hair, and it makes it a lot easier to get the caliper back onto the brake rotor when you're putting the bike back together. This Africa Twin is really a good looking bike as far as adventure bikes go. I've done a few of these. This is the first video that I've done on the Africa Twin, but I've probably taken one of these bikes apart several times, and I don't know why I didn't shoot video then, but easy bike to take apart. So I'm using a pit bull stand to get the front wheel off the ground. This bike doesn't come with a factory center stand. I have a pit bull stand holding up the rear end. And now you see me hitting on the 22 millimeter nut, and what I'm doing is knocking the axle through the forks. And on the right hand side, now that the fork's out, you'll see that there's a hole in the axle, and with that hole you can take a Phillips screwdriver and stick it through that hole, and it'll pull that axle out of the fork. And then you take your right spacer and drop it on the right side of the bike, your left spacer on the left side of the bike, and you're done removing the front wheel. So now we've balanced the front wheel. We're putting it back together. What you see me doing is I'm putting Lubrimatic marine grease on the fork seal. Oh, I'm sorry, not the fork seal, the front wheel seal. And this will allow the spacer to glide freely in the front wheel, and it will stop any kind of dirt, debris, and moisture from getting into that front wheel and damaging the bearings or whatever else. So I'm doing it to the right side now, and we're going to put the right side spacer in. And the reason I use Lubrimatic marine grease, this grease is good enough for your boat trailer, backing it in and out of salt water. So it's absolutely going to be good enough for your Africa Twin, running it through the mud and whatnot wherever you might ride your Africa Twin. And I'm putting the same Lubrimatic marine grease on the axle. The reason we lube our axle, we keep our axle clean and lubed, as it is so next time this axle is removed, it'll come out easier. Remember, the axle, the wheel is not spinning on the axle. The wheel is spinning on the wheel bearings. The axle's just there to hold everything into place. So you don't need a high performance lubrication on your axle. You just need something that's not going to corrode or deteriorate between tire changes. And that's why I like the Lubrimatic marine grease. So we're going to slide our axle back through the forks, and this axle did give me a little bit of a hard time. And if you remember watching me remove the axle, it did stick coming out. So I don't know what's going on with it. I don't really care. But this is one of those few times where I will pull out a dead blow hammer and hit the axle through. But if you watch any of my other videos, I'll pretty much always tell you, do not beat on your bike with a hammer. But the Honda axle does have like a little point on it, so it will align itself in the fork. And I could see that it was halfway into the left fork. It was just getting stuck. It was just bound on something. So I just took the dead blow hammer and pushed it through the rest of the way. And now we're putting that 22 millimeter axle nut back on. We are not going to torque that axle nut at this time. We're just going to get it finger tight, and then we're going to jump over to the left hand side of the bike and put the left caliper on first. Always put your left caliper on first. The reason for that is the left caliper's on, you jump over to the right side of the bike, you put your right caliper on, you're already on the right side of the bike, so your caliper's on, your calipers are torqued down. When you spin that front wheel and grab a handful of brake, you're going to do that 3 or 4 times. What that does is brings everything into alignment, because your axle is still only loose in there, and your pinch bolts are only loose. So instead of jumping up and down on the bike like some of the manuals tell you to do, if you just spin that front wheel and grab a handful of brake, when that wheel comes to that sudden stop, that jar that it makes when the wheel comes to a stop, it'll bring everything in your front end into alignment. So with the front caliper tightened down with a regular ratchet, now I've put my torque wrench on, and I like to torque each bolt 3 times. So if you watch me, I'll do click click, and then click click on the other bolt, and then click on the other bolt, and then click on the other bolt. So 3 times is what I like to torque each bolt down. Some might say there's safety in numbers. Now we're over on the right side of the bike. And like I told you, you do the left side first, and then you come over and do the right side. So when you spin that wheel, you're already there. So you don't have to walk back around the bike. You're already sitting on the right side of the bike. You just spin the wheel and reach up and grab a handful of brake. You might call it lazy, but I would like to call it time management. And I only charge $20 a wheel for a mountain balance on any motorcycle except a Harley. I don't do Harleys anymore. It's gotten old. I'm tired of working on Harleys. But I'll tell you in this video, if you've got a cool bike and you want to get tires on it, I can hook you up with the most affordable set of tires. And like I said, I will put them on your bike, $20 a wheel. So whatever Rocky Mountain ATV and motorcycle charges me for the tires, and another $40 for me to mount and balance. I will do your bike. Just let me know. You got to come to Murphy, North Carolina. I can hook you up, because I would love to shoot video of your cool bike and put it on the interwebs so other people with your bike can see how to properly change the wheels and tires out. Some of my videos, if you watch, I actually shoot video while I'm got the tires on the tire machine and balance and everything. So right now you just saw me spin the wheel and grab the brakes. So I'm pretty sure everything's in alignment. You'll know because when you spin that wheel that final time, that wheel will spin freely within the calipers. There won't be a lot of brake drag. So now I'm tightening down the pinch bolts. Pinch bolts are typically a low foot-pound number. I don't like tightening down the pinch bolts with a foot-pound torque wrench. This is an inch-pound torque wrench. It takes a little bit less force to get to the inch-pounds with an inch-pound torque wrench, and you never have to worry about stripping out the bolts or the forks with an inch-pound torque wrench. That's my video. Thanks for watching.